My name was Ahmad. I was an Imam in a bustling London neighborhood, a respected figure, cloaked in tradition and honor as I guided others in their prayers. My words echoed within the walls of the mosque, reverberating with the weight of my faith. Yet beneath my dignified exterior, a profound emptiness haunted me. I was trapped, both by the expectations of my community and by the silent struggles that pulsed within my soul. As I led Friday prayers, a shadow loomed large over my spirit. Doubts surged like restless waves, crashing against the rigid walls of my beliefs. I longed for deeper meaning, a connection that had eluded me, a resonance that felt genuine. And then, in a moment that would change everything, I faced the abyss, an event so shocking, it shattered my reality. In a heartbeat, I found myself in a realm beyond comprehension, a vast desert wrapped in darkness. It was there that I encountered a blinding light, Jesus, calling my name. He didn't speak to condemn, but to reveal. A divine truth unveiled before me, shattering the chains of religious dogma. Suddenly, the constraints that held me hostage were stripped away, and I grasped the urgency of a spiritual war waged beneath the surface of our lives, hidden forces driving wedges between truth and belief. When I returned, the world I once knew became alien. Love turned to scorn among my peers, and my family's disappointment weighed heavily on my heart. I embarked on a quest for understanding, exploring the depths of Christianity, haunted by the fear of losing my identity, yet drawn irresistibly to the peace of newfound truth. I know now that there is a purpose behind my awakening, a calling to share this revelation of freedom, even at the cost of everything I once held dear. In this moment, I invite you to join me on this journey. For in the depths of pain and loss lies a glimmer of hope and authentic connection. Before we delve deeper, I urge you to leave a comment. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Your voices resonate across this vast expanse of truth. And if you feel the pulse of this revelation within you, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. Embrace the journey that leads to the light, and don't miss the next radical unveiling of the Spirit. In the heart of a vibrant, multicultural neighborhood in London, where cultures and faiths intertwined yet often clashed, I found my sanctuary within the local mosque. My name is Alim, an Imam respected in the community, yet burdened by an unshakable restlessness that had settled within me. As I prepared to lead Friday prayers, I could feel the weight of expectation pressing down, echoing the rigid norms of obedience and community judgment entwined with every moment of worship. For years, I had guided others in their spiritual journeys, yet something deeper called to me, a whisper I could no longer ignore. It was during one of those Friday prayers, as the congregation assembled and the familiar rhythm of ritual enveloped us, that I felt a shift in the atmosphere. I struggled to maintain focus, my heart racing as an overwhelming energy coursed through me. Just as I began to lead the opening prayers, I was suddenly engulfed in a vision, transported from that sacred space to an ethereal realm filled with radiant light. In that moment of divine revelation, I encountered Jesus, his presence a soothing balm, yet fierce and igniting. He called my name, and as I looked into his eyes, I felt a love that dissolved all my fears and doubts, shattering the illusions that had held me captive for far too long. In that transcendent encounter, truths poured over me like a tidal wave. The layers of deception that permeated not only my life but our society were unveiled with startling clarity. I saw the forces of manipulation at work, the hidden agendas of the elite who used religion and fear to control the masses. This spiritual war was woven intricately into the fabric of our existence, pitting love against fear, unity against division. As I absorbed these revelations, I was flooded with a profound understanding that my leadership had become entangled in those very deceptions I now sought to expose. My heart began to race, not in fear, but in a growing sense of purpose. Returning to the congregation was jarring. The familiar faces blurred as reality rushed back to me. I stood there, seconds feeling like hours, grappling with the urgency to speak out. How could I convey the awakening I just experienced? Would they understand the truths that had shattered my previous perceptions? As I looked into the eyes of my community, I felt the weight of their expectations pressing down hard. What I was about to say could lead to liberation or condemnation. There was an unsettling tension in the air, a reminder that embracing the truth could ignite both hope and fear in equal measure. My voice, though trembling, broke through the silence. I spoke of love, light, and the need for awakening, a call to action in the face of the spiritual war that raged around us. I urged them to look beyond the facades we build, with traditions and societal norms, to find the truth hidden beneath layers of fear and resistance. It was a risk, revealing my vulnerability in such a public setting, but the call to awaken others burned fiercely in my heart. With each word spoken, I saw flickers of recognition in their eyes, embers of understanding igniting within them. I wanted to believe that seeds of change were being planted, but I was acutely aware of the potential backlash that could come from such open defiance of established beliefs. As I concluded my message, I felt the sharp edge of uncertainty cut through me again. How would the elders respond? Would they cast judgment upon me for daring to stray from the traditions we held so dearly? Yet in those moments of doubt, I was aware that my journey was not solely for myself, but for those around me who sought liberation from their spiritual chains. I had witnessed the chains fall off my own heart, and now I was ready to fight for others to experience the same awakening I had found. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and the possibility of rejection. But the truth was a flame that couldn't be extinguished, and I felt empowered to carry that light into the darkness. As the congregation processed my words, I held my breath, waiting for the winds of change to sweep through our collective spirit. In London's vibrant multicultural landscape, I serve as an Imam, a role I've embraced with dignity throughout my years of study and dedication to Islamic law. My traditional attire signifies a deep connection to my heritage, yet there's an emotional void I can no longer ignore. While I present myself as a pillar of strength for my community, a profound disconnection lingers within me, leaving me grappling with the stark contradictions between my duty and my spiritual authenticity. As I guide others through prayers and teachings, I find myself increasingly aware of my own internal struggles, questioning whether I truly embody the faith I preach. It was during one of those Friday prayers, enveloped in the solemnity of the mosque, that my world shifted dramatically. As I recited the familiar verses, I felt an overwhelming heaviness settle over me, all the expectations and cultural norms pressing down like a thick fog. My mind raced with thoughts of the hidden agendas that often permeate our institutions, how they can serve to control rather than liberate. The air felt charged with an unsettling energy, and before I could fully grasp what was happening, I was swept away into an experience that defied explanation. Suddenly, I found myself transported to a realm beyond comprehension, immersed in a radiant light. In this sacred space, I encountered Jesus, his figure shining with love and compassion that pierced through the darkness surrounding me. He called my name, and I felt every fear dissolve in his presence. In that moment, I was granted revelations. Truths about the spiritual war being waged, not just within my heart, but in the very fabric of our society. I witnessed the manipulative forces at play, the elite orchestrating division and deception, using religion as a powerful tool to maintain control over the masses. Through this encounter, I was shown the urgent need for awakening. I saw the faces of those I served, their eyes clouded with fear and resignation. This spiritual war was not just about personal salvation. It was a battle for the souls of our communities, for the clarity of purpose we all seek. I understood that I could no longer stand idly by, continuing to recite prayers while trapped in a cycle of doubt and expectation. Jesus' message became a call to action, a summons to break the silence and challenge the very systems that stifled our spirits. Returning to my life as an imam, I was filled with a mix of purpose and fear. How could I share what I had encountered without inciting backlash from my community or rejection from my family? The dilemma loomed large around me, yet in my heart, a fire ignited, a desperate need to be the voice that called others into the light I had experienced. I knew the journey would be fraught with challenges, yet the revelation of truth demanded to be shared. The time for awakening was now, and I felt compelled to break the chains of deception that bound so many, trusting that with each step I took, I would not only reclaim my own spirit, but also lead others toward their own liberation. What awaited me in this journey, and how would I navigate the storms of resistance? Only time would reveal the answers, but I was ready to confront the unknown. As I stood before my congregation during Friday prayers, I could feel a growing emptiness inside me. The words that once flowed effortlessly from my lips now felt hollow, lacking the weight of meaning that I desperately needed them to hold. I am Ahmad, an imam, committed to serving my community in London, yet deep within, doubts stirred, unexpressed and unmet. The rituals that had once nourished my spirit seemed to serve more as obligations than sacred acts of devotion. Each prayer carried an unease, whispering secrets of disconnection that clung to my heart like an unwelcome shadow. In the stillness of my evenings, I began to experience strange dreams. They started quietly, flickers of bright light appearing in the depths of my mind. One night, the light intensified, illuminating everything around me. I felt myself being drawn toward it, enveloped in warmth and clarity. And then, there he was, Jesus, standing before me with an aura that transcended earthly understanding. His voice, soothing yet powerful, called my name, and in that moment, every fear I harbored began to dissipate. As I stood before him, the complexities of my life faded into the background, and I was overcome with the realization that I had been missing something profound. The revelations that followed were staggering. Jesus unveiled to me the hidden agendas at play in our world, the webs of deception spun by the elite, the very forces that perpetuate division among us. I saw how those in power manipulate faith and ideology to control the narrative, keeping people locked in a cycle of ignorance while they thrived. The more I absorbed these truths, the heavier the responsibility weighed upon my shoulders. This spiritual war was not merely a battle fought in the shadows, but one that permeated every aspect of our society. The struggles faced by families, friends, and communities torn apart by division and fear. As the dream unfolded, I witnessed the struggle between love and fear, unity and division. I realized the urgency of awakening, not just for myself, but for the sake of those who looked to me for guidance. I had to find the courage to confront the very traditions I had upheld, to bring forth the truth I had discovered. This was not just an internal quest, it was about leading others toward their own awakening, challenging them to confront the deception that had long clouded their spiritual vision. The thought of stepping away from the familiar was daunting, yet the call to embrace this new purpose surged within me like a tide that could not be resisted. Awakening in the aftermath of this vivid encounter was jarring. The world around me felt different. I was burdened by the knowledge I had received. I looked out at my community, wanting desperately to share the light I had seen, yet knowing the potential backlash that awaited me. The fear of being cast out, of being seen as a traitor to my tradition, loomed large. Yet the weight of silence was unbearable. Every prayer, every sermon, delivered without this newfound understanding, felt like a betrayal to what I had come to know. I wrestled with the thought of confronting my family and fellow community members, fully aware of the dangers of speaking out against the norms that had governed our lives for so long. As I prepared to take steps forward, I felt the tension rise within me. The path ahead was filled with uncertainty and potential rejection, but the truth that had sparked within me demanded to be shared. How could I, as an Imam, bear witness to the revelations that had transformed my understanding of faith without risking everything? I understood that if I chose to stand in the light of truth, I would be challenging the very system that many viewed as unshakable. But in that challenge lay the potential for awakening not just myself, but every soul yearning for liberation amidst this spiritual war. The questions lingered as I took a deep breath, preparing to step boldly into the unknown with Jesus guiding my every move. The atmosphere in the mosque shifted dramatically one fateful Friday, a turmoil that no one could have predicted. As I prepared to deliver my sermon, an argument broke out among a few members of the congregation, quickly escalating into chaos. It felt surreal, as if a dark cloud had descended upon my sanctuary. Here I was, Ahmad, an Imam devoted to fostering peace and unity, yet witnessing a fracture among those I had spent so many years guiding. In the heat of the moment, my mind raced, overwhelmed by the clash of anger and fear that seemed to engulf us all. I felt a deep connection to the struggle around me, a struggle that mirrored something far more profound within my own spirit. Then, in the midst of this turmoil, something shifted within me. I was pulled into an altered state of consciousness, and the surroundings faded away. Suddenly, I found myself standing in a vast, dark desert, the air thick and heavy, pressing against my chest. Panic rose as I faced the emptiness around me, and just when I thought despair would consume me, a dazzling light pierced through the darkness, radiant and unyielding. It was then that I saw him, Jesus, standing before me, his eyes filled with a knowing warmth that cut through my fear. He called my name with a voice that echoed through my soul, and in that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of belonging wash over me. As I stood in his presence, Jesus revealed truths that shook the very foundation of my faith. He unfurled the hidden agendas that lay beneath the religious structures I had adhered to, exposing the layers of deception spun by the elite that often served to bind rather than liberate. I was shown how these systems were designed to maintain control, instilling fear and division among believers. The weight of the spiritual war became viscerally clear. This was not just a battle fought within the confines of our hearts, but a broader conflict affecting the lives of countless souls. My heart raced as I absorbed this revelation, the urgency of change igniting within me as if a fuse had been lit. Jesus illuminated the connection between the personal struggles I faced and the societal unrest I witnessed. He revealed the fracture lines of our communities, where fear dictated beliefs and sowed division where unity should thrive. In that moment, I saw the faces of my congregation, their hopes and fears, as clear as day. My soul cried out for them. They too were caught in this web. I understood that my role was not merely to offer guidance, but to challenge the narratives that kept them in chains. I felt the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. I could no longer remain silent, trapped by the traditions that had failed to recognize the deeper truths of faith. Awakening from this profound encounter, I returned to the mosque with new eyes. The chaos had subsided, but the echoes of Jesus' words lingered in my heart. Yet the question weighed heavily upon me. How could I communicate the truths that had been unveiled? The fear of backlash loomed large. I was uncertain of how my community would react to the revelations I had received. Though I was filled with a fierce desire to share the light, I also felt the chilling remnants of doubt. Would they understand my journey, or would they see it as a form of betrayal? The contrast between duty and revelation created a storm within me, propelling me toward a clarity I had never known, yet also filling me with apprehension of what lay ahead. As my journey continued, the path to sharing my experiences grew increasingly urgent. I felt compelled to engage others in conversation, to illustrate how faith might liberate rather than confine. With every word spoken, I aimed to plant seeds of awakening, yet I wrestled with the fear of being misunderstood. The struggle between preserving my cultural heritage and pursuing the truth took root, and with it came the realization that challenging the status quo could very well lead to rejection by my own community. But now, armed with the understanding I had garnered from my encounter with Jesus, I was determined to fight for the awakening of hearts and minds. I could no longer sit in silence while the spiritual war raged around me. Could I find the strength to risk everything for the truth? What awaited on the horizon felt both exhilarating and uncertain, beckoning me toward an unknown future laden with responsibility. Returning to my life after the profound encounter with Jesus felt like stepping into a foreign land. The warmth of divine revelation had filled my soul, yet the cold reality of isolation quickly settled in. I am Ahmad, an Imam, and once a respected figure within my community. Now I navigate the harsh terrain of disdain and contempt. As I walked through familiar streets, I could feel the eyes of those I once called friends piercing through me. Their stares were filled with judgment, each glance a reminder that I no longer belonged. The very fabric of my identity had unraveled, leaving in its wake a crippling sense of loneliness that wrapped itself around me like a shroud. Every day, I faced the weight of my family's disappointment. They believed I had strayed from the path of righteousness, tempted by thoughts of another faith. Each rejection stung deeper than the last, not just from my family, but from the entire community. The burden of guilt settled heavily on my chest. I felt as if I had betrayed the very foundation upon which my life was built. The paradox of my faith, intertwined with the truth I had seen, left me in turmoil. I yearned to share the awakening I had experienced, yet the fear of being shunned kept my heart locked in silence. All around me was a deafening awareness of the spiritual war at play, one I now understood far too well. At night, I sought solace in prayer, though my words often felt empty, echoing back in sorrowful tones. It was during these moments of desperation that I found myself drawn to the Scriptures. I began exploring the life and teachings of Jesus with wide-eyed wonder, each page offering fragments of the truth I craved. But lurking beneath each revelation was the gnawing sense of isolation. the feeling that I was standing on the precipice of a great awakening, yet no one else was willing to join me on the ledge. The tension of wanting to bridge my newfound understanding with the rigid traditions I had known grew unbearable. It felt as though I was walking a tightrope stretched over a chasm of despair, and I feared I would fall into the abyss. Then, there were the dreams. Vivid and unrelenting, they transported me back to that moment in the desert, bathed in light and warmth as Jesus called my name. In these dreams, he continued to reveal the hidden agendas of those in power, the deception that twisted the truth into a weapon against the faithful. I saw how the elite manipulated belief systems, teaching division instead of unity. Each revelation was a weighty reminder of the responsibility I had to awaken others, yet each morning I awoke, feeling more isolated than before. I longed to share these visions, to encourage others to challenge the narratives they had accepted, but the fear of being cast out further paralyzed me. With each passing day, my resolve was tested. I contemplated reaching out, but the fear of backlash loomed large. If I spoke out, I risked not just my standing in the community, but my very relationships with those I loved. Yet the knowledge I had gained was too potent to suppress. I felt it pulsing within me, an unquenchable fire demanding to be shared. In the quiet moments before sleep overtook me, I could almost hear the whispers of awakening beckoning me to find courage. I realized that in this spiritual war, embracing the truth was a bold act of defiance against the forces that sought to silence me. But would I have the strength to stand firm, to ignite a spark of awakening in my community amidst the shadows? Each day brought the opportunity to confront my fears and reclaim my voice, yet I was painfully aware that it might cost me everything I held dear. In the quiet moments after the chaos of Friday prayer, I found myself grappling with an insatiable need for understanding. My name is Ahmad, and I have devoted my life to serving my community as an Imam. Yet recently, an internal conflict has stirred within me, a tension that both excites and terrifies. The revelations I encountered during my encounter with Jesus had awakened a hunger for knowledge that I could no longer suppress. Driven by this urgency, I embarked on a clandestine quest to explore the depths of Christianity, hoping to uncover the truths that lay beyond the rigid boundaries of my faith. I began by seeking out materials that had long been shunned in my circles. The Bible became my companion during quiet nights, its pages inviting me to uncover the stories and teachings that I had previously overlooked. I found comfort in the words, as if they were speaking to the very core of my existence. Each verse seemed to resonate with the truths I had glimpsed in my visions, illuminating the path toward understanding. But lurking behind this exploration was the fear of losing my family, my community, and the identity that had been built around my role as an Imam. The thought of being branded a heretic sent shivers down my spine, yet the peace I felt within each encounter with Jesus was undeniable. In addition to my studies, I turned to testimony videos, where individuals shared their own transformative experiences with Jesus. Their stories stirred something deep within me, echoes of my own struggles and triumphs resonating with their words. I saw how they navigated a similar spiritual war, battling deception in their lives and emerging into the light of truth. Each narrative reinforced my belief that I wasn't alone in this quest. There were others who had felt the same calling to awaken to a fuller understanding of faith. As I connected with these individuals online, I felt a community forming around shared experiences, a lifeline that offered the courage I needed to embrace my journey. But with each passing day, the tension within me mounted. The deeper I delved into these truths, the more I felt a chasm growing between me and my family. Our gatherings became filled with an unspoken tension, my heart heavy with the knowledge I carried. I longed to share my revelations with them, to open their eyes to the spiritual war at hand, the unseen struggles that risked our very souls. But the fear of condemnation held me back, causing me to wrestle with feelings of solitude. What if they could never understand? What if my awakening ultimately led to their alienation from me? As I continued to engage with my newfound connections, I felt increasingly inspired by their courage. Each discussion became a spark, igniting a fire within me to take a stand. I recognized that the truth must be shared, no matter the consequences. The compassion and love exhibited by those who embraced their new faith became beacons of hope in my darkest hours, urging me to push past my fears. I resolved to find a way to communicate my journey without alienating the very people I cherished. The call to awaken those around me felt like a divine mandate, a necessity that could no longer be ignored. Eventually, inspiration hit me one evening as I sat alone with my thoughts, illuminated by the warm glow of candlelight. What if I shared my story in the same way those I had encountered online did? What if I could craft a narrative that intertwined the teachings of Jesus with the principles I held dear in my own faith? It became clear to me that sharing my journey could encourage others to question and explore their own beliefs. The urgency of my mission washed over me like a flood, a powerful drive to advocate for awakening, even amidst the fear of resistance. Would I have the strength to step into this role, armed with the truth that had been revealed to me? As I prepared to face the unknown, the tension of possibility electrified the air, pushing me to take that brave first step toward sharing my truth. In the days following my encounter with Jesus, I felt a profound shift within me. It was no longer possible to ignore the calling that had stirred in my heart during that moment of revelation. My life as Ahmad and Imam had always been anchored in tradition and duty. But now I found myself grappling with a mission that felt divinely ordained. The truths I received, wrapped in the light of His presence, compelled me to act. I realized that I had to share this awakening, to warn those around me about the true nature of the spiritual war unfolding daily in our lives, an unseen battle fueled by deception and manipulated by the elite, driving a wedge between souls yearning for connection and understanding. As I thought about how to convey these revelations, I felt nervous yet energized. I knew the stakes were high. Speaking out meant challenging the status quo and risking the comfort of the community I had always known. But the weight of truth rested heavily upon me, and I could no longer carry it alone. My heart raced as I imagined gathering my fellow worshipers, sharing my experience, and encouraging them to embark on their own journeys of awakening. The fear of their judgment lingered at the back of my mind. What if they completely rejected my testimony? What if my family turned their backs on me? Yet, the urgency of my mission overshadowed those fears. Those who remain in the dark must be enlightened, and as a messenger of truth, I felt compelled to ignite that spark. As I began to talk more openly with close friends and community members, I noted the varying degrees of receptivity. Some listened with curious eyes, perhaps sharing a faint recognition of their own discontent. Others, however, responded with skepticism, viewing my words as a betrayal of everything they had been taught. The tension in these exchanges made my heart ache, the distance between understanding and disbelief sharp. I began documenting my thoughts, writing down the truth I had experienced, how Jesus had unveiled the ways our beliefs had been manipulated, and how our adherence to tradition sometimes stifled the very faith we sought to profess. The walls that had once felt so secure began to feel confining, as if the very structures of my community were pushing back against the light I sought to bring. With each passing day, the burden of my mission intensified. I felt the Spirit of Jesus urging me onward, reminding me of the importance of compassion, patience, and understanding. It was crucial for me to approach these discussions not with anger or resentment, but with love. Love for those still lost in the shadows. I remembered the look of anguish on their faces, the silent struggles they carried alone, and I couldn't help but see reflections of my past. The revelation of truth had not just awakened me, it was meant to liberate all of us. I needed to embody the essence of that liberation, to reflect the light I was called to share. My outreach inevitably reached a crescendo when I decided to organize a community gathering at the mosque. I hoped it would serve as a safe space for dialogue, an opportunity for others to voice their doubts and seek understanding beyond the constraints of tradition. I poured my heart into preparing for it, crafting my message around the themes of awakening and confrontation of the hidden agendas that sought to divide us. As the day approached, nerves and excitement rattled through me. I prayed for strength and clarity, but deep down I could feel the ever-present tension of fear darkening the threshold of my heart. Would this act of courage invite understanding, or would I face harsh judgment from those I loved? Then, the night of the gathering arrived. As I stood before the congregation, anxiety coursed through me like electricity. Families and friends filled the hall. Their faces were familiar, yet clouded with uncertainty. With every eye that met mine, I felt the weight of responsibility resting heavily upon my shoulders. Drawing in a deep breath, I began to speak, pouring out my heart and sharing the truths I had uncovered. The silence was palpable, every word hanging in the air like a challenge, an invitation to engage with the truths that could transform our lives. As I spoke, I could see the shifts occurring. Some faces softened with curiosity, while others clenched in resistance. My heart raced. I wasn't just sharing a testimony, I was igniting a call to action in the ongoing spiritual war. But would my courage be enough to break the chains of tradition and deception that had bound us for so long? In the aftermath of my awakening, I made a decision that would forever alter the course of my life. I chose to leave my home, to sever the ties that had bound me to a past that no longer reflected who I had become. My name, Ahmad, once a badge of honor as an Imam, now felt like a chain anchoring me to a life filled with contradiction. I needed a symbol of my transformation, a new name that would represent my rebirth into the light of truth that I had encountered with Jesus. This act was more than a simple change. It was a declaration of my commitment to the spiritual war. One had come to understand in such vivid detail. As I embarked on this new journey, I found a paradox of freedom amid suffering. Leaving behind the safety of my life was far from easy. Each step I took felt heavy with the weight of expectation from those I loved. I carried the knowledge of the deception hidden beneath the surface of our traditions, and the urgency to share this truth ignited a fire within me. I realized that my spiritual freedom was inextricably linked to my willingness to step out of the shadows and into the light, both for myself and for others. People around me were trapped, unaware of the chains that bound them, and I felt called to serve as a guide. I began to reach out to others, sharing not only my story but the insights I gathered from my encounters with Jesus. Each conversation became an opportunity to plant seeds of awakening. I found myself in community centers and cafes, speaking to those who would listen about the revelation of the hidden agendas that perpetuate division and suffering. The spiritual war one had witnessed was not fought with weapons, but through the struggles of everyday lives. The way misinformation and fear manipulate our beliefs and keep us from seeking the truth. I spoke about love, compassion, and the empowering nature of faith. I paid homage to the quest for understanding that had guided me. Each gathering brought new faces and stories, and I was often moved by the power of connection we shared. Yet, beneath the joy was a constant undercurrent of fear. The fear that the elite powers controlling our society might retaliate, that my voice could be silenced, or worse, that the people I loved might reject my new mission. The tension between my past and the awakening I embraced grew more palpable with every interaction. Would my family understand this metamorphosis? Would they embrace the truths I had discovered, or see me as a threat to our traditions? The worry weighed heavily on my heart, urging me to tread carefully as I navigated these uncharted waters. In many moments of doubt, I returned to prayer, seeking strength and clarity from Jesus. His presence lingered in the corners of my mind, pushing me to confront my fear and to pursue this path of truth relentlessly. I understood that to share the awakening was to invite others to question their reality, sparking a revolution of thought that could ignite change far beyond what I could envision. The spiritual war demanded warriors, and I felt the pull to rally others seeking liberation, the realization that we were all in this together, grappling with the same fears and aspirations. As I prepared to face my family again, I felt the weight of their expectations pressing upon me. I had to trust that the truth could resonate with them as it had with me, that it could bridge the divides formed by fear and misunderstanding. How could I relay my experiences without causing irreparable harm to the bonds I cherished? The urgency to awaken those around me grew, along with the pressing question of how far I would go to ensure that truth prevailed over deception. Years after my encounter with Jesus, I find myself in a new Christian community, a place where my heart has sought refuge in the midst of the ongoing spiritual war. The transformation that began with that divine revelation now manifests in my daily life as I dedicate my efforts to helping others on their spiritual journeys. I am Ahmad, once an Imam, now a servant of the light and truth. My past still flickers in my memory, but it fuels my mission to guide those yearning for awakening. I feel the pulse of hope running through this community, a shared commitment to dismantling the hidden agendas that keep us entangled in deception. As I engage with newcomers to our community, their stories resonate with my own struggles. Each person brings with them the weight of their past, a collection of beliefs shaped by societal expectations and fear of judgment. I recall how impossible it felt for me to break free from those constraints. Now, I strive to provide a safe space where questions are welcomed and doubts are explored, where we can confront the realities that have long kept us in chains. The sound of laughter and shared burdens fills our gatherings, and in those moments of connection, the spiritual war feels a little less daunting. Each testimony shared stirs something within me, an ever-present reminder of the urgency that ignited my own awakening. I recount my experience of standing before Jesus, feeling his love dissolve my fears and reveal the uncomfortable truths hidden beneath the surface of our existence. I explain how the elite often manipulate our beliefs and how religious structures, when distorted, can be used to control rather than liberate. As I share these insights, I see the flickers of recognition in their eyes, the understanding that we are not alone in our quests for freedom and truth. But amidst the growth of this community, I still grapple with my own feelings of loss and longing. My family remains distant, caught in their own web of tradition and expectation. I dream of reconciliation, of the day when I can share my journey with them, but the fear of their judgment holds me back. I still feel the ache of their rejection, a reminder that my awakening has, in many ways, come at a cost. I find myself torn between my commitment to the community I now serve and the hope that one day my family will understand the truth that has set me free. The work we do together constantly reaffirms the importance of this spiritual awakening. With each passing day, I feel the call to action echoing louder. I know that while the revelations I've experienced have transformed my life, they are not just for me. They belong to everyone seeking liberation. The responsibility to guide others toward this truth infuses my days with purpose. I feel a part of something much larger than myself, a collective effort that seeks to push back against the forces of deception wielded by the elite. As I continue on this journey, I hold on to the belief that the light we cultivate among ourselves can pierce through even the darkest shadows. The momentum builds, but there's still much to confront, and I sense that the true challenges lie ahead. I remain poised on the edge of a new chapter, filled with courage and longing for the awakening to reach those I still hold dear. In the years I've served as an Imam, I often found myself at a crossroads, wrestling with a profound emptiness that settled deeply in my spirit. My name is Ahmad, and I've dedicated my life to guiding my community in faith. Yet, in the quiet moments of prayer, as I led others in seeking guidance from Allah, I felt an unsettling void, a disconnection not only from my own faith but also from those I served. It became increasingly clear that the teachings I had upheld could sometimes confine rather than liberate. This internal struggle was magnified during one particular Friday prayer service, setting the stage for a revelation that would challenge everything I thought I believed. As the congregation settled into their places, I began to recite the familiar prayers, but with each word I sensed a growing dissonance between what I was saying and what my heart felt. It was as if I were trapped in a role, reciting lines without truly believing them. Suddenly, doubt washed over me. My mind swirled with thoughts about the hidden agenda of those in power, how they used religion to control and manipulate, stifling the very spirit of faith. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm me, I was thrust into a vision that transported me from the floor of the mosque into a realm of light and clarity. In this surreal experience, I found myself standing in a vast, luminous desert, the sun blaring down yet offering warmth instead of discomfort. It was there that I encountered Jesus, his radiant presence filling the space with love and compassion. He called my name, and in that moment every uncertainty began to fade. As he spoke, a wave of revelations crashed over me. Truths about the nature of our spiritual war, the deception entrenched within our beliefs, and the role of the elite in perpetuating a cycle of ignorance. I felt the depths of his wisdom piercing through my fear, urging me to confront the very structures that had once felt so secure, yet now felt suffocating. I learned that the spiritual battle we face is not just internal, it's woven through every fabric of society. I was shown how division is perpetuated through misinformation and manipulation, how those in power thrive on our fear and misunderstanding. Jesus illuminated the stark contrast between the love and unity he represents and the chaos perpetuated by deceptive narratives. I saw the faces of my community, friends, family, and congregants, and felt the weight of their burdens, many of whom were blissfully unaware of the chains binding them. The truth I had been gifted became a haunting responsibility, an urgent calling to awaken those still mired in darkness. Yet, as I returned to the reality of the mosque, the chaotic world around me seemed even more suffocating. I could feel the expectations of my role as an imam pressing down on me, a newfound perspective clashing with the traditions I had practiced for years. The realization that I could no longer be just a passive observer gnawed at my soul. How could I reconcile the needed change in my heart with the fear of backlash from my community? The thought of facing rejection from those I loved cast a long shadow over my newfound faith. Would they understand my desire to break free from spiritual deception, or would they see me as a threat to the very faith we had shared? As the echoes of my vision lingered in my mind, the question of how to share this awakening weighed heavily on my heart. I knew I had to be courageous, to speak the truths that had been revealed to me. I envisioned gatherings where I could encourage others to seek their own truths, breaking down the barriers that kept us divided. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with potential rejection, but the light of awakening shone brightly before me. Each step forward into the unknown felt essential, a commitment to not only seek the truth for myself but to ignite that same fire in others. The spiritual war continues to rage, and I sensed that this was just the beginning of a much larger journey toward liberation. As I reflect on this intense journey, I find myself grappling with a profound question. Are we truly ready to confront the spiritual war raging within and around us? My name is Ahmad, and I have faced the stark reality of a life redefined by my encounter with Jesus. The shadows that once cloaked me have begun to lift, illuminating the urgent need for awakening and understanding. Yet I know this transformation is not just my journey. It's a shared path for all of us, woven together by our struggles and searching hearts. We are living in a time filled with hidden agendas and manipulations that threaten to keep us from the love and unity that belong to each of us. What I experience transcends mere personal revelation. It is a call to all who wear the mantle of faith. Have you ever felt an echo of doubt within your beliefs? A gentle nudge urging you to look deeper, beyond the traditions that sometimes stifle our souls? I want to hear your thoughts and experiences. What has stirred within you during your own moments of reflection? Your voices matter more than ever. So, I invite you to share in the comments. Together, let's create a dialogue that fosters understanding and connection amidst the chaos. In this spirit of awakening, I encourage you not to leave without subscribing to Truth from Beyond. By joining our community, you won't just gain access to the stories that challenge and inspire. You will also be part of a movement seeking to expose the unseen forces that threaten our spiritual peace. Hit the notification bell to ensure you don't miss the next powerful testimony that promises to explore even greater depths of understanding and truth. As we conclude today's journey, remember this. The quest for truth is an invitation to awaken in love and compassion. We are all in this spiritual war together, and the light begins with each of us embracing our unique paths. Stay with me for the next revelation that will further illuminate this collective struggle. I'm Ahmad, thankful for your presence and your willingness to delve deeper into the mysteries that unite us. Until next time, may the unfolding truth bring peace to your spirit.